Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Average Joe Sports Podcast. I'm Stuart.
I'm Cy.
I'm Logan.
And for today's episode, we will be talking about coaching carousels in the college and the NFL, talk about NFL wildcard weekend, and finish off talking about the national championship. Alright, so Logan, you want to lead the charge on coaching carousel in college?
Absolutely. So, all right, folks.
CCC.
We had a pretty big coaching carousel this year. Carousel, to call it the least, it seemed more like a circus at times. We had a lot of big openings come up, and a lot of familiar and unfamiliar names filled those positions. And I think only time will tell where some of these unfamiliar names will end up. Maybe 10 years down the road.
I wouldn't call it a circus because Bobby Petrino, their one clown, got fired.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
That's not a circus. But then again, Hugh Freeze got hired, so you know what? Maybe it is a circus.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, Stu mentions Liberty and Hugh Freeze, and, Liberty typically has a pretty good reputation being a good academic school and a school with high morals. So it definitely was interesting. We'll definitely get to that.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting hire, considering everything that went down at Ole Miss with, the whole Bagman situation and Hugh Freeze denying, any acknowledgement of the situation,
And then Laramie Tunsil's draft night.
Oh, yeah.
That was a spectacle to behold.
So, it's a very interesting hire for sure, but, not exactly a bad hire if their goal is to try to improve the football program.
Well, Hugh Freeze is a good coach, but big problem is he going to be doing the same thing he did at Ole Miss,
Right, that's a good thing, but it's also, it's a good point. I think he's really good because, you look at the active coaching roster, there's only 4 active head coaches who've beaten Nick Saban, who most would consider the best college football coach out there right now. I think both of y'all would agree with that. There's only 4 active head coaches who have beaten him twice. That would be Dabo Swinney, who we'll get to later, Gus Malzahn, and
the Gus Bus.
On that list is Hugh Freeze, who did it twice at Ole Miss.
And then who else? Les Miles.
Les Miles was the other one.
And actually, he got hired at Kansas.
That's correct. And the big thing I think we should be watching out for when it comes to Hugh Freeze is, I can't remember a time where he was coaching ball, that I guess, people sleep on independent teams all the time. Now, I just think his level of competition is obviously a lot lower than it would have been when he was coaching in the SEC, which a lot of people, you don't really have to look any further than Notre Dame, and people, complain about their lack of a strong schedule. And, of course, we could see Liberty maybe not competing like Notre Dame does in the coming years with Hugh Freeze, but they can pull another UCF and possibly have a great season, maybe even go undefeated, and not be able to get to the status of even Hugh Freeze could have been at Ole Miss.
Right. I don't think going to a smaller program like this is not at all a bad thing for Hugh Freeze. You look at how it's benefited Lane Kiffin's status over there at FAU, and how much he's well regarded over there. How this could possibly, boost Hugh Freeze's reputation back up, and maybe he can get a better job in the future. But for the time being, I see it's a fairly good hire for Liberty.
That's probably the goal, is just to get his name back out there. I think that his goal should be at a program like Liberty. Go win 10 games. You look at Neil Brown. He came here, 3 straight years, won 10 games, and now he's going to coach at West Virginia,
which we'll get to in just a second.
Yeah, really the hire that stands out to me the most, just for, I guess, personal preference, has to be Mack Brown at University of North Carolina. I know they're going after a guy that, basically a couple of years ago said that he was stepping away from coaching.
So did Urban Meyer.
Right, but the difference is Mack Brown is 67 years old, which a lot of coaches by 67 are retired. Obviously, you've got the select
Unless
few
you're Joe
that are
Paterno.
out. I mean, you got select few like Paterno and some of the others that'll stay around. But I really think Mac Brown's bringing excitement back to University of North Carolina. I think Larry Fedora had already built a decent establishment. I believe he was lacking in certain areas where I do believe that Mac Brown can pick up the pieces.
Right, I do feel, especially recently, that North Carolina's football program, like you said under Larry Fedora, they did take a good few steps forward, but there are also several areas where they took a few steps backward, especially this season, as the quality of football has simply diminished.
But the past 10 years, they've been a recognizable name. You've seen them.
But that's probably mainly due to their basketball program more than their football program.
No, but their football
that's
programs
probably
have
what
been good.
Mac Brown is here for, though. Mac Brown's probably there to, put some excitement and some life back into an often overlooked program that is North Carolina football.
No, but North Carolina football has been good before. I don't know if they've ever been ranked, but they've won big games.
They've definitely been ranked before. I mean, they're an FBS program and a P5 conference. They've been ranked.
I want to say the most surprising, not hire, but most surprising leave was Urban Meyer. You
look at everything that kind of went down with him, the situation. With
the
whole allegations and everything, and then again, he's also dealing with a lot of medical issues at the moment. So
he was dealing with that apparently when he left Florida, but he returned after.
Hey man, stuff comes and goes, dude. So he's taking time to be with his family and step away from the game to look after himself. You can't really fault him for looking after himself.
But I think Urban's gonna go somewhere after a few years. I
USC.
respect him. Where?
USC.
It could be.
It's not that far out of it.
I respect him for staying on campus as AD and for being a teacher. Like, spoiling this now, I'm not that big an Urban Meyer fan because I don't like Ohio State that much. That's a bias, but I do have to credit the guy for not just like completely leaving the university.
Yeah, he could have taken the easy route and just like after everything came up, he could have just been like,
he's not like Petrino riding off on his motorcycle.
Well, my big thing with the Ohio State job right now
How many
is
times
they
are you going to roast Bobby
hired.
Petrino in this podcast?
Many times.
They hired a 39-year-old with no head coaching experience and
name.
what
was Lincoln Riley though?
Well, it was they hired Ryan Day, right?
Right, but what was like Lincoln Riley for Oklahoma though?
But didn't Ryan coach like the 2 games when Meyer was suspended?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're fine.
I just say he just doesn't have a whole lot of a resume. He's still young, which means that he can build with Ohio State.
Yeah, but like I mentioned, right? You look at a guy like Lincoln Riley, who's the youngest coach in college football at 35 years old, is even younger than that, and he's coaching at Oklahoma, and look how well they played this year.
I'll say this: it kind of hurts that Dwayne Haskins just declared for the NFL draft. That's
also that's not exactly a bad thing for them too, because it gives them time to like set in and get a little bit of a rebuild going on.
Yeah.
So they might win 8 or 9 games next year, but it's definitely not the worst case scenario.
And this was also, keep in mind, this is an Ohio State team now. At one point had, what's his face? They had J.T. Barrett, Cardell Jones, and Braxton Miller,
who are all nowhere near the NFL at this point.
and those guys were great college quarterbacks. Ohio State, much like Nick Saban in Alabama, can make quarterbacks. I don't know if Urban had anything to do, which he probably did, with all those quarterbacks, but Ohio State has good.
When I think about the University of Alabama, I don't necessarily think quarterbacks though.
Well, okay. Let me take that back. Like you look at Alabama, it's never like great quarterbacks.
Yeah, because everywhere else on the field is really good. They can have a solid game manager at quarterback, like a guy like Blake Sims, and still win a national championship.
Here's the thing. Like Bama, obviously, quarterbacks don't translate to the NFL. But Blake Sims is a prime example that Saban can work with a quarterback and can at least make him look good. Saban can win as long as someone with competency is taking the snap.
Exactly. They've never really needed like strong quarterbacks.
Yeah. But then Ohio State, I feel, have always produced some
But that's
pretty
also a
strong
topic
quarterbacks.
we'll probably get to later as well.
And another one I think a lot of people are definitely curious about, especially after seeing Les Miles on the college football playoff commercial last night, is Kansas's own Les Miles.
Kansas has needed life in that program
Yes.
for the
The
past
last
10,
time
for like
they
the
were
whole
good
past decade.
was that it was that 08 season when what's his name, like Tommy Reese was the quarterback. Was it
2007 is when they had that.
It was
that
Mancini.
really good. They were playing a New Year's Six Bowl that year, right?
Yeah, they played in the FedEx Orange Bowl. Oh, they had Aqib Talib.
Yes.
They had Aqib Talib. Tommy Reese's quarterback. Who they had? They had a really good receiver that year. I want to say it was Demarius. I don't think it was.
And the last time I can even remember
probably
hearing
wasn't.
anything about Kansas football was when they hired Turner Gill out of Buffalo, and of course Turner Gill did not live up to expectations.
Then again,
And
like
right now, Buffalo-
then again, the whole program has not lived up to expectation. It's kind of another North Carolina situation where the basketball is like really good. Football is really taking a back seat big time, especially at Kansas. So having a guy there like Les Miles who could really shift the tide there, and who knows, maybe 2-3 years down the line, we could be talking about Kansas winning a Big 12 title.
That could happen. Though, speaking of Big 12, I think it's about time we get to this. So we're based in Troy, so we just came off our second Dollar General Bowl victory, and we all saw it coming from 50 miles away. We just didn't know where and didn't know when. But Neil Brown has taken the country road to West Virginia.
Yep, he will be.
I hate that Neil's gone. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Si. I hate that Neil's gone, but that is a great hire by West Virginia.
He'll be taking over for Dana Holgerson, who's leaving for Houston.
Houston.
That's also another good question. Like a lot of people were questioning Holgerson leaving West Virginia to go and take over a G5 school like Houston.
Maybe he has a connection with the program.
Money.
Yeah, I was about to say what
Money.
Simon said. I believe money talks in every aspect of college
Houston
football.
offered him a really huge contract.
I mean, we don't even have to look any further than Neil Brown. I mean, the guy is making like just over $3 million a year, and this time 10, 15 years ago, no, $3 million a year.
I'm about to
Saban
say,
doesn't make
Nick, I don't
$30
think
million.
Nick even makes $10 million.
So what I'm saying is, this time 10, 15 years ago, making $3 million a year, you had to have been one of the best coaches in all of college football. And now it's like $3 million is just a competitive salary, and he's out there in the middle of the crowd. And college coaches' wages, like as Si said, their coach that's now at Houston, is making more than that, and that's not even a Power 5 program.
But I want to go back. I want to go back to Neil, and I just want to talk about his legacy. And you guys can attest to this because you guys have seen it too. So obviously the what was it 31 wins? Yeah, 31 wins in the last 3 seasons.
Yep,
three
straight
bowl
10.
victories. And not only that, but like nationally televised appearances. The main 2 I'm thinking about are, of course, LSU, the voice crack heard around the world, and Nebraska this year. Even though Nebraska sucked,
Yeah,
that's a Power 5 school.
Like, you look at a program like Troy. We
Victors
come
are
from this is one of the it's a decent sized city in the state of Alabama, but it's probably
But
out
we're
of
in the
like
Sun
out of
Belt
like
with
the
8 teams.
out of like the top 5 Alabama schools, we are number 5.
No, we're number 4, South Alabama.
They're in Mobile. That's what I'm talking about. That like, as far as the national outreach though, we're probably
been to South Alabama Stadium. That's not 5-star.
They're only just now getting a stadium on their campus. Lad Peoples is probably getting torn down.
Oh yeah, their new stadium's gonna be nice. But
like we went to Lad Peoples this year, and they had like a little like projector up for a big screen.
Not to mention that was at the Dollar General Bowl just as well. Same setup, just different day.
Which that'll also probably move as well with the new stadium. So
yes, the big one.
I mean, they're still playing the Senior Bowl at Lad.
Well, the big name that comes to me, I mean, now that we're talking about something about Scott Satterfield from Appalachian State to Louisville. I mean, if you
Which
guys
is
don't know,
that's a good
that's
hire.
another big loss too. You look at both Neil Brown and Sutterfield and how much they meant to App State and to Troy alike. What?
Well, Satterfield
Okay, was
Brown-
Satterfield there
what-
when App State
what?
first crossed?
App State is 4-0 in bowl games under
yeah,
him.
and Satterfield also won 3 Sun Belt titles at App State.
Well, one of them was
arguably better than Neil Brown.
title, but
Arguably better,
but
they're
he won the first legitimate Sun Belt championship, though. That's a good hire by Louisville. And again, they
both are very good hires.
They took out the trash. They got rid of Petrino. Trash.
Why? I don't see why he was hired to begin with. Like Petrino, he was already hired by them at one point to begin with. Went behind their back and went to the
signing a 10-year
Falcons
contract.
after signing a 10-year contract, and then comes back
after like 2
and
9.
now he's gone.
And then Arkansas.
Then again,
he got
when's the
caught.
last time you have really looked at a Louisville and been like, hey, that was a good decision they made over there?
Yeah, I actually like that hire.
And
I know it didn't develop, but I like
he
it.
wins at Louisville with Bridgewater, goes to Texas, and he sucks.
I mean, unpopular opinion, but I like the Petrino hire too. He went back and had
I
some
just don't like him because he doesn't have any character.
Right. Well, he went back and had some
Right,
competitive seasons.
Right,
even
that's the
after
biggest
he-
issue. You want a guy like that. That's like one of the biggest qualities you need with a head coach, though, is that you need a guy who, especially
are
at the
we talking-
college level, that's going to inspire his players to do the best both on the
Are
field
we
and
talking
off
about?
the field.
Are we talking about wins and losses on paper? Or are we talking
No,
about?
we're
what
talking-
he's doing off the
We're
field?
talking about
Like,
his
we're
character,
talking about-
wins and losses. Yeah,
We're talking about
but,
like an overall, just as a head coach in general. You want a guy who can establish results on the field, but also establish results off the field in the way that his players act and how they are involved with the community and everything. You want a guy who's like pushing his players to do their absolute best in both aspects of their lives. So when you get a guy like Petrino in there, you're not exactly like setting the best example for your guys off the field. That's my biggest issue with any school hiring Bobby Petrino.
And apparently he's in.
But hey, he wins football games, right? That's what's most important,
Apparently
right?
he was in the running to be the Troy coach at one point. And no, he would. If I've said this, if Petrino would come here, he would have an affair with one of the assistants, and after starting like 1-4, ride off into the sunset. Not even the sunset, into the night on his motorcycle. Much like the Baltimore Colts packing up and leaving overnight, that's what Petrino would do. And then he'd probably go get hired by, I don't know, Cleveland. Actually, I can't even say that because Cleveland's actually competent again.
Very true.
Because they got, after the event known as the firing, they got rid of Hugh. But
Right.
we're on college.
Well, there's plenty of time to talk about the NFL.
Logan, do you have anything else on
I think people,
college?
in terms of college, I think, pay close attention to your group of 5 schools because I believe in the coming years it's going to continue to be a stepping stone for big programs throughout the nation, as we saw this past coaching carousel.
Another question I want to add, though, is especially when you look at guys like Dana Holgerson leaving P5 schools like West Virginia to go coach at places like Houston, and you look at the success that places like Central Florida are having, especially recently, do you think that the mantra of G5 schools simply being a stepping stone could soon fade out for certain schools?
That could. I mean, because who wouldn't want a job like like a Boise State after they got big, especially after that. After
why
that
would you want to
Fiesta
leave a
Bowl.
program that's producing that success? You're going to winning Fiesta Bowls and everything, doing stuff that you would.
Well, yeah, but if that position becomes vacant, you'd want to go
especially
there. 'Cause it's a
especially now
small
with the
school.
playoff that we're
But-
working on
Playoff.
we're working with a select committee, right? I know that mantra of there being 10 eligible conferences is something that gets that gets
There's only
mocked.
5 eligible conferences
But,
and independent.
Does it?
As a result, Notre Dame.
But does it open up the question of G5 schools somewhat having a chance if they're good enough? Like, if you think someone could step into a program like, let's say Dana Holgerson steps into Houston, right? And they turn into what Boise State was in the late 2000s. Do you think that eventually the time would come where if they win enough games in a row that they would eventually get thrown into the playoff? Let's say Central Florida goes undefeated next year.
Well, I think that ship sailed because they lost
by 8 points with a backup quarterback.
I think they had to. Well, that's true, but still, they had to beat LSU and go undefeated next year to
if
finally
that's what it's
going to
take, then it's going to be pretty much impossible for a G5 school to get in.
Well, I mean, remember Boise State almost played for the national championship
but
when
that's because
there was no playoff, but they lost to Nevada.
The system was flawed to begin with.
Yes,
and it was pretty much taking advantage of the flawed system. It's not NCAA 14, where you can take control of like Army or something and just in 1 year be in the national title picture.
I mean, heck, going on that, NCAA 14, like, every time you play a dynasty, there's always,
there's always just some random school,
like a Ball State.
Oh, yeah, no, for me, it was Fresno State. It's like Fresno State all of a sudden sneaks into, like, the top 15.
It seems to be Ball State. Which I have
Ball State? Oh, God.
My cousin played tight end there in the 90s, too.
I tried doing, like, an NCAA 05 dynasty with Ball State. Only scored 1 touchdown off
the whole year?
No. I only played, like, 1 game, and I'm like, alright, this is too frustrating.
I'll tell you guys, I was up at Ball State up in Muncie, Indiana this past summer. Went by their football stadium, and I'll tell you, University of North Alabama, who's been D2 for the past like 30 years, looks a lot nicer.
And that's a real shame because I don't really care for UNA
really
Stadium
is.
at all. It is. If the stadium up there is that bad, then
it's not good. It's probably newer.
Imagine the
but
day we see
it.
a MAC program in the national title game. That'll be the day. I'll actually chuck this computer out of the window.
That'll be the day.
And I think that
That'll be the day.
I think that opens up the discussion for the idea that or more of the fact that the MAC
Who says it'll be
went
Buffalo?
1-5 in bowl games.
MAC went 1-5.
They did.
Who was their only winner?
Us for one.
That's a great.
Oh, another interesting stat. You want to talk about how bad the MAC programs are? The whole state of Michigan went 0-5 in bowl games. The only other school that the only school that didn't make a bowl game for them was Central Michigan, who went 1-11.
And they hired a decent little coach. And Jim McElwain. So congratulations.
Jim McElwain. Where is he at?
He used to
Name
coach
sounds
at
familiar.
Florida. Now he's at
And then Colorado State.
Central Michigan.
Now he's at
Oh
Michigan.
yeah, CBS Sports is giving that hire an
Yeah,
A
I mean,
minus,
It's-
and they give Les Miles a C and Mac Brown a D. I kind of see Mac Brown
The
because
only
he's coming back into
issue
the
I
game.
think they have with the hiring is that it's like their play styles are so like based in the mid-2000s style of play, because college football, the way tactics shift every like 2-3 years with new players and new ideas, new philosophies and everything, that it's kind of like a step backward in terms of like play quality. So I can see where they're giving that hire a little downgrade. But for a program like Central Michigan to attract a guy like Jim McElwain, I can see why they gave that an A-. Guy's a quality coach. I mean, ignore his Florida record for a second.
The fact I know his name means he's quality.
Yeah, the fact that we actually know his name and know where he's been, I think that's a good sign of what they're doing.
We know where he's been. We know what he's seen. It's not pretty.
Jeff Driscoll. Oh man.
Well, he transferred to Law Tech, didn't he? He played well there.
Oh yeah. I didn't even
in
think
his
about
senior
that.
year, he played well. Yeah, but at Florida, he wasn't much. Florida's so weird with quarterbacks. You finally get a decent one in Will Greer, and he goes to CVS and takes some over-the-counter crap or something. I don't know how the story goes. It's just a dramatization, and he gets
Then
strong.
leaves for West
But-
Virginia and finishes fourth in the Heisman race.
Hey, I love Will Greer.
Yep.
I loved him at
I was
West
actually
Virginia.
campaigning for him
If-
all year to win the Heisman, and then he blew
Oh, me
it.
too. Well, let's see. So, played that great game against Texas, and then they lost their final 3 games, didn't they?
Since the release of Fallout 76,
They
they are
haven't
0-5.
won.
They
Oh,
lost their final 5 games.
Jesus, that's almost as bad as last year with Miami. In
Not as bad
prime
as this year with
position
Miami, so.
to make it to the playoffs, and they lost to Pitt, who didn't even make a bowl
it could
game
be worse.
last year, and got blown out at home at Washington. And actually, I called this. It wasn't a big offensive blowout, but defensively, they got blown out by Wisconsin again. That was, oh my god. I like Miami. I like the U.
Well, that makes one of us, I guess.
The teams back in the early 2000s, guys that had Jeremy Shockey and Ed Reed, I think they played in the same team.
Next, you're gonna
I
talk
love
about Ray
those guys.
Lewis, and then both of us over here will be upset.
Well, Ray was in the 90s. We're not gonna talk.
Let's just not talk. We can talk about Dwayne Johnson. I like him.
NFL.
The Rock. Well, yeah, you
That-
like
that
him
is
because you're a
true.
wrestling fan.
Solid
Alright,
ball player.
So, is that all we got?
I think this is a good point for us to transition into
The NFL wild
NFL
card.
carousel.
Yeah.
I know. We'll talk about some coaches first. First off, I am happy Bruce Arians is employed again. Very happy about that.
I got nothing against
love
the
that
Bruce
man.
Arians. He always comes across
Great,
really
actually,
great.
good
so.
coach.
Pretty good resume.
He always comes
Also,
across really great, so I'm glad to
definitely.
see him go.
I mean, only reason he wasn't more successful is because he had to start Ryan Lindley in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's bad enough you lose Carson Palmer and you have to play Drew Stanton.
No,
who's
but then you have to
one of
lose.
the
But then you lose
quarterbacks
Drew
always
Stanton and have to play Ryan
He
Lindley
got to the playoffs though. Okay?
with Drew Stanton and not Ryan Lindley. That was mainly on the back.
No, I watched
That was
that
mainly
game.
on the
That
back
was a
of Carson
terrible
Palmer
game.
too.
Oh my god!
I guess
that
we should
Cardinals team
also,
should have been more successful. That division game against the Packers that one year was.
And speaking of the
absolutely
Packers, I guess we can move into
incredible.
yeah.
Go, Mike.
Matt LaFleur, not Mike.
Well, no, Mike
McCarthy
fired.
did get fired, and he is supposedly getting replaced by Matt LaFleur, which has not been entirely finalized yet. It's been reported on that they're working on a
where's
deal,
LaFleur from?
but Matt LaFleur, the current Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator, is supposedly going to be taking over.
Ew. Derrick Henry's
Okay,
great.
look,
I didn't think
right.
Mariota had
This
that
was,
great a year.
but you got to also take into consideration, especially with Matt LaFleur, that he was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons when Matt Ryan won MVP. And then the season prior to this one, he was with the LA Rams and helped break Jared Goff into the league when he had his really good year last year. And then, this year he was pretty much working with first year dudes at pretty much every positional coach. So.
I guess.
So the offense kind of started this year with the Tennessee Titans, but the guy's proven that he can coach an offense. In years past.
This is a young coach that's gonna come in and have a lot of success, bring Green Bay back to what we remember from the early 2010s.
Well, I mean,
So you're saying they're gonna win a Super Bowl under Matt LaFleur?
I think put it down next 5 years.
You have a guy who can a guy who put Matt Ryan in the MVP form. Imagine doing that with Aaron Rodgers.
You got to keep Aaron Rodgers
Maybe
healthy
getting older,
first.
but he's still
and
got a
their,
lot of gas.
strength and conditioning staff is one of the league's worst.
When the NFL gonna force the Packers to release him because they screwed up his rehab?
That's what I'm
so
saying.
bad?
Their strength and conditioning coaches are really bad at what they do. The fact
The medical staff for the Eagles must be terrible after all the secondary players they lost. They sort of 14 different guys at the secondary. A secondary that sucked to begin with.
I mean, Ronald Darby's not bad.
He got hurt though.
That is true.
So did Sidney Davis for the whatever for the second straight year. Anyway,
also,
all right,
I believe, from what I heard, Mike Munchak is supposedly
I love that name.
why, but the Denver Broncos are
Munchak.
like trying to finalize a deal with him as their new head coach, replacing Vance Joseph.
Well,
I mean, Vance Joseph shouldn't have been in a head coaching spot to begin with. Watching some of his stuff back when he was defensive coordinator at Miami when they went to the playoffs 2 years ago. Like, Miami's defense was actually fairly nice. Guys like Cam Wake and Ndamukong Suh, guys like Rashad Jones in the free safety position. All really good guys, and a bunch of young guys at corner who were doing some stellar work. So I get why the Broncos took that risk on, hiring Vance Joseph, but I feel like that was kind of a little too premature for a guy like Vance Joseph, who had only not been in the league that long when they hired him to be head coach.
Now, okay, is Munchak the guy from
Munchak is
Chicago?
Pittsburgh
Yep.
Steelers offensive line coach, formerly Tennessee Titans.
For some reason.
Well, because I thought they were also looking at the guy from Chicago, defensive coordinator, which that would be a really great hire considering how great that defense was. Like, everyone talks about Khalil Mack, but that's secondary. Eddie Jackson and Kyle Fuller, they had the most interceptions. Like, well, the defense in general had the most interceptions, and Kyle Fuller had 7, which led the league.
Right.
That's the secondary I wish
Vic
the Eagles would have.
Fangio. Yeah. He's also talking with the Miami Dolphins as well.
Okay,
To replace Adam Gase, who that wouldn't be a bad hire.
Bad. They beat the Patriots.
That's also, Adam Gase isn't also a bad hire too. You look at what he did year 1 with the Miami Dolphins. They finished 10-6 and 1 game off of winning or 2 games off of winning the division.
That's because they have the Patriots in the division.
That's what I feel is the worst thing about their situation, is that when you're looking at a guy to go to a program like that, which Miami's got a fairly rowdy and fan base, and a really large one at that. But for them to have struggled as bad as they have for the entire millennium, it's just nobody wants to be in that spot to play against Belichick.
But even like when they had Dan Marino, they didn't win a Super Bowl.
Look at the teams Brady's had to go up against though. Like, the Buffalo Bills have been
trash,
terrible since 1999 when they last made the playoffs. They made the playoffs once since then. The Dolphins are the only other team to win the division since Brady's been quarterbacking at. And that was the year he was hurt and not playing.
And yet they still won 11 games.
And yet they still made the playoffs. Matt Castle.
2000
Matt Castle. Jeez, he was really good that year. What happened with his Titans then, for real?
Well, he went to the Chiefs.
And then what? Todd Bowles? Is Todd Bowles supposed to be the answer for the Jets to win the division? No, that's why he got fired with 4 years.
I love Gridiron Heights' portrayal of Todd Bowles. That he's just not impressed by anything. He's like, I'm not going to. Todd Bowles isn't impressed by anything because that's what the Jets basically teach you. I feel sorry.
Jets fans have been in misery since Super Bowl
3. Here's something I thought about. Like, because I've been playing new Spider-Man on PS4, and Peter talks about his how Parkers have bad luck. Since Spider-Man's in New York, I'm assuming that Spider-Man is both a Mets fan and a Jets fan in New York.
Why do you say this?
Because apparently Peter Parker has bad luck.
So he's also an Islanders fan.
Yeah,
you can be an Islanders or Rangers fan at this point.
Well, at this point, couldn't he be a Knicks fan also?
Yes. Well, because he's not from Brooklyn, so. But still, it's the Knicks.
Trying to watch basketball or hockey in the city of New York is just miserable.
Hey, at least they've got options.
Meanwhile, in
the crippling Alabama reality.
I know Pennsylvania's got 2 options, but in Philadelphia, you win as a fan base, you lose as a fan base.
And then there's the year 2014, where everything fell apart. Foles fell apart for the Eagles.
Well, that's because they gave Chip total
The Sixers
control.
were in the middle of a giant tank session. What?
Yeah, Phillies. I'm pretty sure that's when the
what?
Phillies were
The Flyers.
in there and
The Flyers were at the beginning of their rebuild.
I don't even know if that rebuild's still going on. You can't tell me.
I don't even know what the Phillies did that year. So
they suck. They won the division all the way through. I believe it was 2011 because they lost in the divisional round to the Cardinals, who went on to win the World Series, and they haven't been back to the playoffs. But we'll talk about baseball eventually. This is an exciting year for the. Anyway,
just throwing that out there.
All right, so we got a few minutes left, so let's go over the national championship. Logan, this is where you can come back. He's been sitting there for a while. He's not an NFL guy. Besides the Titans.
Okay, yeah. Now NFL, I mean, you got to be the Titans or anybody that plays the Titans, and then we can start talking. Or if they're on my fantasy team, I'm your typical.
I don't do fantasy football. The
NFL
Titans are my fantasy
guy.
You're right.
I gotta censor that out now.
Hey man, y'all finished 9-7, right?
But we made the playoffs.
Yeah, if we would have made the playoffs over y'all if we were in y'all's division.
We made the playoffs.
Dude,
anyway
reminder that we swept the NFC East this year. So
yeah, shout out to my Titans sweeping the NFC East this year. But yeah, back to where it's all important. Back in college, obviously I thought the Bama loss was humbling for their fan base, and in a way might have been past due. I mean, I think it's been a long time coming for Alabama. Obviously, 2007 season, they had their weak years, but weak games. But in the sense of, that loss, I haven't seen that, and I'm 20 years old. I've been following sports for a long time.
I knew it was going to be a great game, but that first quarter was made on big plays. And that made it that just made it entertaining.
Now, I want to put it this way, that out of all the results that I envisioned for this game, I did a bowl game pick'em with some of the people in my family. I had this game finishing 38-31. And I originally swapped from Alabama to Clemson just in an attempt to get points. I didn't think Clemson, as good as their defense is, I didn't think they were going to win this game. But this game was a shock to even people who aren't Alabama fans. How many people do you know that would have predicted Clemson to blow out Alabama?
Because Alabama's blown people out all year.
This is the worst loss under Nick Saban.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever lost 14 points.
I don't think people understand that. This is the worst loss under Saban.
Points-wise.
28 points. This is one of the worst losses in Crimson Tide history. For as much as they get talked up as a blue blood and for being the backbone of college football in a sense.
Not completely wrong.
This was the biggest shock. And as Logan says, it's going to be definitely humbling for some people out there.
My biggest shock wasn't that Clemson, went up big early, but that Alabama just never.
But that's my thing, right? I thought behind this was that, I'm not surprised that Clemson won. Clemson's a very, very good team, right?
Yeah, they have.
You can't take that away from them. But in the manner that they won, that was the surprising thing.
You gotta give it up.
You gotta give it to
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence.
He was. I thought he was kind of a little bit overhyped, honestly, but shut me right up.
He's a 19-year-old kid.
Right.
Phenomenal.
Right. To put it in perspective, I'm 19 years old. He's out there winning national titles and putting teams on his back. He
and
had
we can't even get a podcast to work.
He had more points by himself than the entire team.
Like, he had over 200 yards before he even had under 10 passes because he was hitting the deep ball. And his receivers, man, those guys were making one-handed and juggling catches the whole night. Even the run game was great.
I mean, I think you're talking about, football on Sundays. I mean, your Clemson receivers and even Trevor Lawrence and Tom are going to be playing on Sundays.
Well, take a look at Mike Williams. He was great this year.
Y'all want to talk about Clemson receivers? Y'all can't understate how good Justin Ross was this game. Guy's also a true freshman.
Jesus.
6 receptions, 153 yards with a touchdown.
Did Hunter Renfrow even do anything?
It doesn't matter.
He wasn't even a top receiver, and he's like their best receiver. That is a great receiver.
That's the scariest thing, though, is that you look at how good Trevor Lawrence played. He went 20-32, 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. The kid's a freshman.
That's awesome.
Like, he has 2 more years, more than likely.
I mean, let's talk about interceptions for a second. I mean,
Tua threw 2 of them.
Tua threw 2 of them.
2 of them?
2 of them.
The pick 6 early in the game just really set the tone.
Really...
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's young. I mean, so is Lawrence, but...
What, a year older than Lawrence?
Yeah, still a 20-year-old kid. I agree. That definitely probably shook him up.
So, I mean, what is it with Bama kickers, right?
I mean, the bug got both teams. I mean, didn't Clemson guy miss an extra point also? I mean,
yeah.
It's almost like it's
like you look at, but like you look at these teams, right? You look at the Alabamas and the Clemsons of college football, and none of them can recruit kickers.
It's crazy
because they don't really need them.
I think they can recruit them. I think they have a hard time developing them because they put their focus somewhere else. Because Bama, it seems like every year, we got the number 1 this, we got the number 1 this, we got the number 1 this, and I know a number 1 kicker is thrown in there somewhere. I mean, there's no way.
It's not that kickers in college football are bad. I mean, just look at how much of a celebrity Cameron Dicker became. You know?
What do you say, celebrity? Pretty much a meme at this point.
I thought you had to do something bad to become a meme.
To be a meme. Dicker, the kicker. It just rolls off the tongue so well. So he's a meme.
He's also a good kicker. At least from what I understand.
Yeah. True. So, I mean, but this is Tua's probably worst game that he's played, and he still put up 22 for 34, 295 yards, and 2 touchdowns. If that's his worst game, the dude's gonna be a stud on Sundays.
I would argue his game against Georgia was worse.
I mean,
but he only played for part of that too.
Right, he only played for part of that game.
Next season, I definitely want to see him in more game-winning situations. I think the Heisman's got his name on it next semester.
Well, he threw most of his touchdowns in the first half too. Is the thing.
Right.
In the first half of game.
Well, again, I believe the Heisman winner should go to somebody that's put in a game-winning situation, and I just wasn't.
He didn't really have to be in a game-winning situation.
So you agree with this?
Right.
That
but
Kyler
I believe
Murray
it was necessary.
So you agree Kyler Murray deserved
I think Murray
yes, Kyler Murray was put in more game-winning situations.
That was one of my biggest things that I had beef with over just living in this state alone. Everywhere you'd go, there's Mama fans walking around just around the state in general.
It's a cult.
And
everywhere you'd go, you see people talking how Tua should have won the Heisman, and yet you know what? I don't disagree that Tua should have won the Heisman, but I feel like Dwayne Haskins even should have won the Heisman as well.
People keep talking about
Tua.
The dude second.
He came in third, and he shattered pretty much every Big Ten record.
How did he come in third? He
because
threw 50 touchdowns. Because I was in the bowl game, he threw 50 touchdown passes.
Because he played third fiddle to Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray.
I think he's better than Tua.
Even after they beat Like, even after they beat Oklahoma, all you would hear about is how Tua deserved the Heisman over Kyler Murray.
My thing
As
was,
if that's, like, the real, like,
But Murray
showcase.
still had a great game. It's just Oklahoma began their comeback way too late.
Bama's got this almighty defense everybody keeps talking about. Yeah,
And that defense
Kyler
is
Murray.
incredible.
The defense just let up
Kyler
44
Murray
points, though,
had a great
against a
performance
freshman.
against Alabama, and then
The
Bama
offense
fans,
just was too good.
right? Alabama fans still try and claim that Kyler did not deserve the Heisman.
He
over
put
Tua.
up.
And
He
he
put up
was-
51 total touchdowns and over 4,000
Yeah,
yards,
he's-
and like
I
he
mean,
didn't deserve the Heisman.
and he even proved himself against Alabama. That's what I'm saying.
Like-
I mean,
like people tend to forget that football is not a it's not a one person show. It's not like basketball where you can have one guy go.
Yeah, it's
a whole team effort.
Most definitely.
It's not like you can just have a guy like LeBron James go up the court, drop 40 on someone, and then win the game.
I mean, a lot of, an offense
It doesn't work
hinges
like
on
that.
its
Two different
quarterback.
sports.
A lot of the offense hinges on the quarterback, but quarterback's not the only player. Look at the 06 Bears.
Right, like
They did Super Bowl with Rex Grossman.
right. It's probably the most important position on the field. I don't
But it's
think anybody's going to argue that.
well, I mean, you can look at teams, with great receivers, kind of like you guys are talking about with Clemson and New England Patriots in years past. And I mean, heck, you give me a good offensive line and that receiving core, and I can go out and be quarterback and be every bit as probably successful. I mean, granted, it doesn't really matter.
No, like
in the sense.
the reason the Patriots offense clicks so well is because Brady is pretty much a big
But
leader
Brady,
for that team.
look at his targets though.
You can't just throw just some random person or
Well, if
some
you gave
average
him
Joe
if you gave him an
into the
0-16,
position and just
give Brady an 0-16 receiving core, and there's no way they'll be in the playoffs. I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but quarterback's important, but just going to show.
sure, but
you saw Tua kind of struggled early, and defense didn't really help him at all.
but I
I
mean,
think maybe we should.
but pretty much the entirety of the offense runs through the guy taking the snaps. The whole offense pretty much relies on the quarterback doing what he needs to do first.
But that
Everything else has to fall into place
Bama
afterwards.
run game didn't have a big game though. They have three guys in there that can run the football great.
For all the talk of naming Harris,
Oh no, I like Josh Jacobs. I
Yeah,
love that guy.
love the guy.
He had didn't he have a score?
Yeah. Did he catch a pass somewhere?
Someone had a score where they went across the end zone, then fumbled and picked it back up. I think that was Harris.
Okay. Yeah.
And if we're wrong, then you can tell us we're wrong.
But essentially, right? I've never I've been like I said, I've been an Auburn fan since I was 4 years old. So I've been watching college football for the past 15 years of my life, whether it be with family or by myself and across various different leagues and everything. So when I say that this was probably the worst I've seen Alabama play over the past decade.
And it was both sides of the ball too.
This includes
Offense could have been better.
this includes
defense
last
not
year's
existent.
Iron Bowl as well.
Well, it makes me wonder if that's going to hurt Quentin Williams' draft stock at all.
That is very true.
He didn't have the greatest game, but I think if he shows up in the combine and does what he's expected, I think he'll still be okay.
But like I said, football is a very team-based sport, so while he may not have had the best game there, if he his past resume and like you said, his draft stock will speak for itself. But I kind of want to talk about Dabo Swinney a little bit.
Dabo.
I don't know if y'all guys went back and watched his little post game interview he did last night, but
The one on the field?
yeah.
Yeah, no, we were there.
Everything that he said, it shows just how great of a man he is and how humble he is, and honestly, you couldn't be more happy for the guy. I don't think you could find one college football fan that dislikes Dabo.
If you want a testament to how great a guy Dabo is,
all he did,
I got a story. So this was I hate to interrupt you,
No, it's
but
fine.
so where I went to high school. Clemson has a safety. I think he still plays it. Yeah, Nolan Turner. He had an interception in the game against Notre Dame. Well, his dad, his name was Kevin, I believe, played football with Dabo at Alabama. And they were roommates their freshman year, and they were great friends. Well, Kevin, Nolan's dad, had Lou Gehrig's disease, and when Nolan was in high school, Kevin died. His dad died. And we were on the same team. He was 1 year ahead of me. We both went to Vestavia, and Nolan was our starting safety. The year we went, I believe, 8-2 and beat Hoover. Which is huge for us. Well, Dabo personally came up to the school and offered Nolan a scholarship. And a lot of that hinged off the fact that he and his dad were great friends. And you know what? And Nolan's starting now, from what I understand. So, just for that, I have, all the respect in the world for Dabo.
Yeah, even in his post-game interview, all he did was talk about how well Notre Dame was over the season from up to their playoff game, and how much he respected both their program and Alabama's alike, and just to be so humble in victory like that is something that you can really it's something that I feel like we can all aspire to.
And he looks like a fun guy to coach with. I'm not saying Saban is a bad dude, because he's probably a pretty good dude.
Well, yeah,
but I think the players kind of fear him a little bit.
Well, Nick Saban.
He's more like.
Well, I will give a shout out to Nick Saban. He did give a very sincere thanks to the media members at the press conference last night, and told them straight up that he loved them for what they're doing.
And that's good, especially after the incident.
Yes, in an era of fake news and the profession kind of being in a rocky condition, I appreciate Saban going out of his way.
I never said he was a bad guy.
Right.
He hasn't gotten in any trouble or anything since he's been there. He raises great football players, but it's just.
I guess two completely different vibes you get off of.
Yeah, he's more kind of stern.
Saban gives off a more stern and more commanding vibe because he expects a lot of his players and everything.
Yeah, Dabo seems more
it does rub some people the wrong way, obviously.
Yeah.
He doesn't come off sometimes as the most likable guy. But when comparing him to Dabo, who comes off like he's having a great time doing what he's doing, and he genuinely loves and cares about his players. It's just two completely different vibes.
Like I said, he came all the way South Carolina to Vestavia Hills, Alabama, to get to give Nolan a scholarship because he cared about his dad, and he cared about Nolan's family that much that he came up himself to do it. Selfless guy.
So I guess this will lead into another topic here. Clemson wins their second title in 3 years, being the only team under Saban's reign to beat him in the national championship.
More than once?
No, just in general.
Oh.
Because Ohio State didn't beat them for the title.
Yeah, that was semifinal. Great game.
But I guess now the question asked is Clemson officially a dynasty or not?
Well, because
my usual go-to answer is if you win 3 in about let's say 3 and 5 years, I would consider that a dynasty. So the Patriots in the early 2000s, that's a dynasty. Patriots of late, not as much, but definitely.
They're the last team to win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Exactly.
Yeah. In
the Seahawks of late, I wouldn't consider them a dynasty either. I don't think the NFL has a current dynasty running right now.
And I would say
Alabama currently a dynasty.
It's
I
been
would say
it's
Alabama is the college football dynasty, but that's all subject to change. I mean, Ohio State and Clemson are knocking on the door, and now it seems
I
like
mean,
Oklahoma
they
is
haven't
knocking
won
on the door.
championship every year,
Right.
but I'm no joke. Past
But
10
I don't think
years,
you have
they've
to.
been in the conversation every year.
Past 10 years, they have 6 titles. That's a dynasty.
Yeah,
I think Alabama
has
is
two
the
and,
dynasty.
Clemson has 2 and 3. What is y'all's definitive answer for what a dynasty is?
I
Would y'all say they are one now?
I think there can only be one. I think it's Alabama.
I don't think
there could be multiple in the sport.
I'm gonna say for right now, Clemson's not.
If
dynasty?
Clemson were to win next year, they'd be a dynasty.
Yeah, I would consider it a dynasty then.
3 and 4. I mean,
Let's see what Alabama does next year, and I think if Clemson wins it next year, then I would replace.
If Clemson wins it next year, that doesn't take away from Alabama's dynasty at all.
No.
Clemson would just.
I think Alabama's dynasty
Yeah.
would be expired, and Clemson would take place.
Okay. I would say Alabama's dynasty would still be there. It's just Clemson had won 3 of the last 4.
No, that's not to discredit Nick Saban or anybody up there. I mean,
6 and 12. That's.
I mean, he has created a dynasty of his own. Nick Saban has, with the players that have came through there, and obviously all of the guys in the NFL.
That'd be 6 titles in 11 years. I mean, that's still a dynasty, even if Clemson were to win 3 and 4.
Correct.
So then there would be 2 dynasties. Yeah. If what I'm saying is correct, then
I think there's
2
one
dynasties.
true dynasty, and that would be whoever is most prominent at that time.
But there would still
And
be 2
consecutive.
dynasties.
I would say if Clemson wins it again, I say we're talking about
So are
Alabama's
we gonna
dynasty coming to a close and the Clemson dynasty.
So are we eventually going to start hating Clemson the same way too?
I don't think so.
I think maybe our thing is that we live in the state of Alabama. So
Yeah, we're surrounded by it.
We're exposed to it everywhere we turn.
Yeah.
Like you go into a random like you can go down to the Walmart down here and you'll find Alabama stuff in there.
Roll Tide, Paul. You guys listen to the Fine Bomb show today? I didn't get the chance to.
No way.
I was not able to.
Oh man, I bet that
Guys,
was a soap opera
Jeez,
today.
that probably was really great.
I hope Phyllis called in.
So,
She's my favorite.
One of them passed away not long ago.
I don't
It was
think
Tammy,
it was
right?
Phyllis.
I
Huh?
think it was.
Yeah, it was one of his like major callers did pass recently. Yeah, I've been hearing about that. Well, on that somber note, I think it's time to close the podcast. Guys, any final thoughts?
I guess let's go with the best. Let's see. I guess everybody give their best happening of the past sports weekend. I suppose. Give your best moment or your best game or whatever.
That Eagles game. Golden Tate justifying his signing with that one touchdown catch. I'll say it. That justifies his whole signing. Making a clutch catch like that. Cody Parkey, God bless his soul. Doink. Doink. That's all I got.
Mine's gonna be the continued success of James Harden and the Houston Rockets. Dude's on his way to
Probably another
records. I mean, it's right now it's LeBron James, James Harden breaking all the records. I mean, obviously you've got your great players in the NBA, but we're seeing history in the making with these guys.
Such a great basketball generation we live
It
in.
is. It really is.
We got so many guys who you could consider Hall of Famers for real. I mean, you even got a guy like LeBron James, who a lot of people. I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but including myself, who I would consider the greatest basketball player of all time, especially with like the physicality and the level of basketball that we're playing at this moment. It's
Impressive.
It's very impressive to see how he's stayed at the top for 16 years now. This is his 16th season.
Wow.
And he's still up there, MVP talk every single year. But you know, I'm not gonna go into the NHL. Although Philip Forsberg being back for the Preds this yesterday was a big happening. I want to say that just the fashion that Clemson was able to defeat Alabama was probably the most surprising thing of the whole weekend. Probably easily the best thing that happened. Maybe that's just the salty Auburn fan in me talking more than
Yeah.
likely, but
I mean, hey, the Tigers did win the championship.
the wrong ones, but
Now the Orange Tigers.
There's always next year. But yeah, I want to say just the manner that Clemson was able to shut down perhaps so many were calling the best Alabama team of Saban's tenure, probably the best Alabama team of all time. The manner that they were able to beat them, probably the best thing I saw this week.
All right, well, that seems just about it. Well, thank you for joining the podcast on the Average Joe Sports Network, where we talk about the games and not practice, man. Have a good night.